In section 4.2, we study user-defined classes. Here, you will learn how to create classes and the related grammar. About the file name, in Java, everything is organized into classes. If there is only one class in a file, the class name must be the file name. It is recommended that the single class be declared public. A class name must start with uppercase letter. Therefore, Java file names always start with a capital letter. Multiple classes can be stored in one file. In this case, only one class can be declared public, and the class name declared public must be a file name. For example, if there are only one class in a file, then the class name must be the file name. So like this, there is only one class and the class name is AA, then the file name should be aa.java. And it is recommended that the class is declared as public. And it is recommended that to write one class in a file. However, sometimes there can be multiple classes in a file. In the case, only one class can be declared public. So like this, there are three classes. In this case, only one class can be declared as public. And the public class can be a name of the file name. So if you write like this, and if you make this file as bp.java, then compile error will occur. So always, if there is a public class, then the class name should be the file name. And like this, every class don't have to be public in some cases. But in the case, any class name can be a file name. So this file can be a aa.java, bp.java, cc.java. But in Java programming, it is recommended to write one class in a file and the class should be declared as public. I will explain packages and files. You can create multiple packages like this: department, main process, and school under one project. And you can store multiple Java files under each package. So this shows this is the package and this is the Java file. So on the department package, there are two Java files. And on the main process, there is only one Java file. And on the school package, there are three Java files. There are two files on the department package. So here is department package, and there are two Java files on the department package. In this case, package department, this line should be the first line of both files. This means that the class administration is defined in the department package. Likewise, human resource class is defined in the department package. So the package statement specifies which package the class belongs to. And in fact, the name of the class is the actual name of the class is package.classname. So this is very important. The actual name of the class includes the name of the package it belongs to. So package is very important in Java programming. So scanner class, the name of scanner class is scanner, but the actual name of the scanner class is java.util.scanner, because java.util is the package that has a scanner class. Likewise, the three files, step.java, student.java, and teacher.java are created on the package school. So these files must have package school as the first line of each code. And the actual names of each class are school.step.java and school.student, school.teacher. Here, the class manager schools is created under package main process, like this, under main process. Then the class manager schools should have package main process in the first line of the code, like this. And the actual file name is main process.managerschools. This is the actual class name. If there are package statement and import statements are together in a file, the package statement should always be on the first line. Package statement always be on the first line. And there must be one package statement in a file. Sometimes there is no package statement, but usually we have just one package statement. If we want to use classes in another package, at the time we need to use import statement. There can be multiple import statements. So this is the kind of formal way of using package and import statement. There is only one package statement in the first line, and there can be a lot of many import statements like this. Here is an example of package and import statements. If we want to create human resource object and student object in the manager schools class, department.humanresource and school.student should be imported. So in this class, this class, I want to create human resource object and I want to create a student object. Those are other packages class. Then we must import both classes like this using actual names. In computer science, star symbol means OR. The star symbol is also multiplication, but in this case, star means OR. So these two are the same. These are the two are the same. So if star is written like this, then it means under every class on the school package. So these two are the same. Therefore, if we write like here, then in this class, all three classes in the school package, step, student, teacher can be used inside this main. I'll explain how to make user-defined class. Recall from our overview of objects in Chapter 1 that an object has a state and behavior. State is the characteristics of an object. So consider a student. Student can have a name, major, email, and GPA as their attributes. Attributes is sometimes called fields and member variables. And the possible behavior of the student is setting name, major, email, and GPA, and printing out information. And this is important. Every object has its own area and stores member variables there. Member variable is attribute. So this means that if we make a class and we create several objects of that class, at the time each object has its own spaces to store their attributes. However, all objects share methods. I will talk about that in more detail. This is the first example of writing a class. I will consider a student class. To write a class, at first you need to consider the state and behavior of a student. In the example, I will consider two states, name and GPA. And three behaviors, setting name, setting GPA, and printing out the information. And this is the package structure of our example. So the package name is example 1, and under example 1 there are two classes. The student class have only one class, which includes this information. And in the student test class, I'll create an object and test the student object. This is the student class. There is only one class, student, in a file. If there is one class in a file, the class name must be the file name. So the file name is student.java. And the first line of the file should be package statement. And there are two parts in class. Usually the first part is we call states and the other is behavior. This is the states part. Actually, these are variables. And you must remember these terms. We call this part as field, attribute, member variable, and instance data. Usually, we declare this part as private. So, private member of data. This means that each object created from the student class has name and GPA variables inside the object. And since it is private, it is protected from the outside. You will understand shortly. And this part is behavior part. We call this methods. Method implements the behavior of the student object. Usually methods are declared as public, like this. Public means outside of this class, these public parts can be used. And private means outside this class, the private part cannot be used. There are three methods here. You will learn more about methods in 4.4. So I think you cannot understand right now everything in the method like this. But I hope you understand just this is a method. And this is the field, attribute, member variable, and instance data. So please be familiar with these terms. In the student test class, there is a main method. And in main method, I want to create two objects of student. So this part is the creation of student object. To create an object, we need to use new keyword like this. So at first write down class name, object reference variable. You can make this variable and new keyword, and this is the constructor part. Constructor looks like class name and parentheses. Sometimes parentheses is empty like this, and sometimes some data will be inside this parentheses. And this part is the call method by object S1. So object S1 called setName and setGPA method. And here, this time object 2 called setName and setGPA method. As you see here, setName and setGPA is a method. It is shared by all the objects. I will show you the memory status of each line. At first, we create an object of S1. Then, two spaces are created. One for object reference variable and the other is object itself. So, at first, object reference variable is created, and then, using new keywords, object is created. Inside object, since there are two fields, attributes, name and GPA, it looks like this. Name space and GPA space. And likewise, if we create one more object called S2, then S2 object reference variable will be created and object itself created. And also inside the object, we have name and GPA field like this. Then we set the name of S1. This means that apply this method to object S1. So inside S1, the name is initialized using James Gosling string. So James Gosling will be stored here. And this means that apply setGPA method to this object. So inside S1, the GPA will be 3.5 like this. Likewise, set name will be applied to S2. So Steve Jobs here, and then CHPA applied to S2 object. Also 3.3 will be stored here. Can you understand that? And then we print out S1 and S2 information using S1.print. So print method will be applied to S1. That's why the first line will be printed out S1 information, this information. And S2.print means print data of S2. So the data in S2 will be printed out in the next line like this. Let's take a look at another example. Consider if you consider that you need program with a rectangle, then maybe the states of the rectangle would be length and width. And possible behavior of the rectangle is setting length and width or printing out the information. So here I made a package example 2. And under the package example 2, I made two classes. One is the rectangle class itself, and the other is rectangle test to test the rectangle objects. This is an example code of rectangle. So as I told in the previous page, I have two fields, attributes, states of the rectangle. They are length and width. So length and width are the states of the rectangle, and they are declared as private to protect the data. And this part are methods. There are 5 methods: set length, set width, and perimeter, area, and print. As you see the names, I think you can understand what the methods are doing. Set length will setting the length of the rectangle. Set width will setting the length of a width. And perimeter will compute the perimeter of a rectangle. Area will compute the area of the rectangle. And print will print out all the information of the rectangle. And here I show you how to create rectangle objects and apply methods to the rectangle objects. So this is the creation part. So two rectangles are created. One is R1 and the other is R2. So the memory would look like this. R1 object reference variable and the real space for the object. And inside the object there are length and width space. And R2 also has the same form in the memory. So R2 also has length and width space like this. And set length method will be applied to R1. So R1 has 3 here, and set width 5 to R1. So 5 is here, and set length to R2 object, and set width to 7 to R2 object. So 2 and 7 will be here like this. And then R1.print. This means that apply print method to R2. So this is the result of R1 print. And R2 print is the same. So this is the result of R2.print. And after that, this line is printed out. And here, area method is called by R1 and perimeter method is called by R1. So the area of R1 is 3 times 5 is 15, and the perimeter of R1 is 16, because 3 plus 5 plus 3 plus 5, that is the perimeter of the rectangle. And then print out this line one more time. And R2.area means compute the area using R2 data. So R2 is 2 and 7. 2 and 7. So 2 times 7 is 14. And R2.perimeter, this can be computed by adding two numbers, multiply by 2. So 18 is the answer. So I hope you understand how to create object. How to create object like this and how to call methods using objects like this. A constructor is a special method used to set up an object when it is initially created. It is initially created. A constructor has the same name as the class. If there is no constructor in a class, a default constructor is provided automatically. I will explain this with an example. I want to make an object to store scores. So I made class score. There are two attributes, math and science. They are private members. And here there are three methods, setMath, setScience, and print. So there are five members in the score class. And in this case, there is no constructor inside the class. The compiler automatically provides a default constructor. So even if there is nothing here, you can think that this is inside the class. The default constructor looks like this. Public, the constructor name is the same as the class name. Class name score and constructor name is the score. And empty parentheses and braces. And there's nothing inside the braces. Usually we call this a default constructor. This is the same class, except that I explicitly include default constructor like this. In the previous example, I didn't put this, but at this time, I explicitly include this default constructor inside the class. If you want, you can include the default constructor like this. But usually we don't put this because if there is no constructor, the compiler will automatically include this. I will explain how the constructor works. When creating an object, we must write new keyword like this, and then this part is the constructor. The constructor is responsible for creating the space. So after this line, the memory will look like this. This is the object reference variable, and this is the real object. So these spaces are created. And inside the object, actually, since there are two attributes of rectangle class, length and width, the spaces for length and width also are created like this. And after creation of this space, using these two methods, setLength and setWidth, we can initialize the space inside the object. So length would have 3 and width would have 5. However, actually using a constructor, we can create an object and initialize the object fields at the same time. Here, we make a space and initialize the space with 3 lines. But we can do this by one constructor. I will explain about this in the next page. There are two classes here. One is rectangle and the other is rectangle test. And in the rectangle class, 2 attributes and 3 methods are provided. And if you look at this code, there are some things you haven't learned yet, but don't think it's difficult. You will learn one by one. First of all, try to understand what I am explaining. This is a constructor. Why is this a constructor? Because it has the same name as the class, rectangle, rectangle. So that's why this is a constructor. And this looks different from the default constructor. This is a default constructor. In the default constructor, there is a parenthesis and there is empty. empty parentheses in the default constructor. But in this constructor, there are two values inside the parentheses. In the parentheses, because there are two variables in the parentheses, we need to use this part when call this constructor. Let's see how this constructor is used. This part is where the constructor is called. Here, just a second. Here, when call this constructor, two values are provided. The first value 3 will be assigned to len, and then the second value 5 will be assigned to width, and len will assigned to length finally, and width will be assigned to width finally. So after this line, the object is created like this, and then 3 will go to len, and the variable len will be assigned to length, so 3 will be stored here. Likewise, 5 will go to width, and then width will be assigned to width, so that's why 5 will be stored here. So after this one line, we can create an object and then initialize the object at the same time. Likewise, after this line, the object R2 is created like this, with 2 and 7 are as their data values inside the object. So when we print out R1 and R2, we have this result. Let me explain this example one more time. Here is a rectangle class, and this is a constructor. This is not a default constructor. The constructor will be called whenever we create an object. For example, in the code, we create 4 objects, so the constructor will be called 4 times. And in each call, the object is created in the memory with its own data. So A is created here with the value 1 and 2, and B is created here with the value 3 and 4, and C is created with the value 5 and 6, and finally D is created with the value 7 and 8. And after creation, each object calls a print method. Here, there is only one print method in the class. So this method is shared by these 4 objects. So if A calls print, A.print, then this will be printed out. This is the A's data. And if B calls print, the output is like this, 3 and 4. C.print will print out this 5 and 6. And D will print 7 and 8. So even if there is only one method, the method will be shared among objects. So I draw like this. So this method is shared by 4 objects. Let's take a look at one more example. This is a friend class. I want to make a friend class to store my friend's information. In the case, I must think about what kind of attributes my friend have. For simplicity, I only choose 2 states, name and email. So name and email are attributes on my class, on my friend. And the possible behavior will be setting name and email and printing out the information. So I'll make a friend class, and for friend test class, I'll make 2 classes. And here is a friend class. Our friend class has 2 attributes, name and email. Name is a string type and email is also string type. And they are declared as private to protect the data. And this is a constructor. This is not a default constructor. The constructor will receive 2 data, and then this data will use to initialize these two attributes. And there are three methods. Set name will receive one string and change the name. And set email also receive one string to set the email. And then print method will print out the information. This is a friend test class. This class has one main method, and in the main method, two friends objects are created and test its method. Here, two objects are created. One is Paul and the other is Steve. Paul has name and email address as its attributes, and Steve also has name and email as its attributes. And there is only one print method, but print method will be shared by object. So if Paul calls print method, then Paul's information will be printed out like this. And if Steve calls print method, then Steve information will be printed out like this. And using set email method, the Paul's email address is changed to this one. And then we print out Paul's information again using print method. Then it will print out the updated information. So Paul and this information, this email address will be printed out. Okay, here is a quick check. What is the relationship between a class and an object? Class is a kind of a tool to create an object, right? So formally, you can say like that. A class is the definition, pattern, blueprint of an object. It defines the data that will be managed by an object, but doesn't reserve memory space for it. Multiple objects can be created from a class, and each object has its own copy of the instance data. I hope you understand this definition of class and object.